Hey everyone, welcome to the Weiner Wellness Week Virtual Summit. We have a lovely guest speaker on with us today, Charmaine Rusin. She comes to us from the PCIC, which is the Pennsylvania Coalition for Informed Consent. And this is a group that I signed up with maybe about 4.5 years ago at an event where they were hosting a movie in Pittsburgh. There was a whole panel board at the end. So it was just a lot of great information. I was signing up for everything. And now I think it's about once a week or so, I get these emails from the PCIC and I'm able to hear what's going on with them. They always talk about new bills and acts and things that are going on in the industry and that they're dealing with. So they work a lot with medical freedom, which is something that I'm really passionate about because we all like to have our own choice. But Charmaine comes to us and I'll let her introduce a little bit of her background, where she's from and everything. But this title is called Compelled to Act. And I really love that. So it's, just talking about her passion and her drive to, make a stand and do things for those who don't know any better, or it's just informing others. So we're so glad you're here. Welcome, Charmaine.
Thanks. Well, I'm glad that you and all your viewers are able to join me at the kitchen table for some coffee and chat this morning. And so thankful to be here. And thank you for mentioning that you signed up for our emails, because I harp on that kind of a lot because I really, we never know what's going to happen with social media. And right now we're all connected this morning and it's amazing. But we're at the mercy of, the hands behind this machine. And should they turn out the lights, we still need to be able to find each other. And the email list is really a great way to do that. So if you're in Pennsylvania, especially, and you're watching now and you're not signed up for our emails, then definitely please go over there to informedconsentpa.org and sign up for the emails. We don't spam you, we only send out information that's really relevant when there is an action needed, or a bill that's, coming or going or dying or whatever it is. We just want to keep you informed. So yeah, a little bit about me. I, with a friend, we started this coalition about 5.5 years ago because following the Disneyland outbreak of measles, we saw a concerted effort across the country where over 100 bills were introduced that would either limit vaccine exemptions or increase mandates. And so vaccines mandates are still controlled on the state level, which is definitely a positive. It's much easier to do advocacy and be effective on the state level. So there were a lot of small groups, kind of, holistic moms groups, natural parenting groups, who were getting nervous because there were some bills introduced here in Pennsylvania. And so we all came together and we joined up under the umbrella of the Pennsylvania Coalition for Informed Consent. And our mission is to preserve medical freedom and privacy here in Pennsylvania and hold our legislators accountable to the Pennsylvania and the federal Constitution, which protects our personal rights. So a little bit about my background. I was really just blessed and fortunate to learn about vaccine risks, about the toxins and the potential injuries of vaccines before I ever had children. I was so fortunate to land a job at a holistic chiropractic office. I do think chiropractors are really on the front line of educating the community about natural health. And I'm so thankful that this office, the Weiner Wellness, continues to really focus on that, because so many of the people who are in this movement came to learn about vaccine risk because of a chiropractor. So thank you, chiropractors, for all that you do, for taking that risk to be bold and speak the truth. So I was introduced to NVIC and Barbara Loeb Fisher's book, A Shot in the Dark, years before I ever conceived a child. So by the time I was having babies, I had plenty of time to do a risk-benefit analysis for every individual vaccine that was recommended. And I was able to make an informed decision with what I felt was a complete collection of information that I had amassed over the years. So many people do not get that opportunity and find themselves in the hospital with a newborn baby, having just been through the most arduous physical exertion that is possible for a human being, labor and delivery of a baby. And you have a nurse or medical practitioner come in and say, it's time for the shots. So we're going to, shoot your baby up with this hepatitis B vaccine. And there you are. What do you have? 30 seconds to 2 minutes to do a risk benefit analysis with a total lack of information. I mean, a completely pared down and skeleton of, vaccine risk is given to you. It's, in my opinion, that is one of the greatest crimes against humanity that I know of that is still underway today, is the vaccination program for newborns in Pennsylvania, in the United States, that within the first 24 hours of life, every baby born in the United States in a hospital is given a hepatitis B vaccine. And the parents are in no shape to do research at that time. And so we're really compelled to reach out and try to educate people, try to get information out there, really just to get people to raise their own questions, to put out, we're not here to fire hose you with information, but we do want to point out that there's more to it than you might realize. And it's important that you ask these questions before you're faced with this immediacy and coercion in a hospital setting or in the doctor's, pediatric setting, so that you have had plenty of time to make your own decision.
Well, that's great. And I can, relate to so much of what you're talking about just based on, family members going through situations. And one thing you said that just made me smile is that you read the book A Shot in the Dark. And that's something that my mom read and shared with my dad when I was 18 months old. And to begin with, long personal story, but all of my shots were delayed. My siblings were all delayed to begin with, and no flu shots, none of the extra ones. And my mom had read that book, and I never received a shot since then. So I really, reside with that book. I really like that, and she still has it, from 28 years ago. And I don't know if I guess she read it when I was 18 months. So about 20 some years ago, looking through it, her highlights and just everything, her notes, it's just so powerful to look back and see that. And that's why we do this. And like, you were so lucky to say that you were able to learn this before you were in that state. And even with people's birth stories that I've heard, if they didn't talk about this beforehand, you don't expect to have a C-section a lot of times with your first child. And then you don't know how you're going to feel, drugged up. I've heard, they want to hand you the baby, but you can't feel your arms. And then you have to make this decision. If you and your partner didn't talk about it beforehand, it's just, okay, you don't know. So it's really great that you advocate for this, especially for people who don't know or haven't been in that position yet.
Well, really, what we hate to see happen is people having to learn from experience.
Right.
So we try to really get ahead of that, and so that people don't have to learn by experience. I had probably a minor vaccine injury when I was a child. I spiked a fever after my DTaP shot. And when we came, my mom brought me for the next visit. She told the nurse, well, I'm not sure if I want to do this booster because, she had a reaction last time. And they said, no problem. And this was over 40 years ago. and how the situation has changed for mothers. You know, my doctor was this older French man who had like 18 children, and he was old school doctor. It's really hard to find now, and parents are just bullied and shamed and coerced, and it's almost, you almost need like a pediatric office visit doula to help new moms navigate just the bullying and coercion that goes on in the doctor's office. And none of it was created for the benefit of the health of the child. You know, I do think I don't blame doctors. They're put in a really tough position, and I do believe that, you know, most doctors went into that field because they want to help people. But just, you know, the way that it's become so procedural and so industrial and not individualized, that, and there's no time for conversations, there's no time for asking questions. I learned about the detriment of the insurance industry when I was 19, and I got kicked off my parents' insurance, and I couldn't get insurance, health insurance, because I couldn't afford it. And I went to like the county, you know, assistance office, and they said, well, you know, if you had like a drug problem, we could give you insurance. And I thought, well, how messed up is this? You know, I'm just a healthy person trying to take care of myself. You know, I have allergies or whatever, but, you know, if I were a drug addict, you'd help me. Well, okay. And then you know, so I would pay out of pocket, and I went to my local doctor, and they had changed their policies, and they said, well, if you have questions, like, it's going to cost you more. So here I am trying to pay for my own health care at 19 years old. And I'm like, well, I better not ask any questions. I only have $40, you know? So that I could see right there, this is not going to help me with my health. And my doctor actually, and that was a different doctor, he actually ended up quitting practice because he was so disenchanted by how the procedures were, you know, affecting the patients negatively, and he wasn't able to help them. But you know, most of the people watching here today understand all of this, and that's how we ended up here. And, you know, in the end, it was a blessing that I couldn't get insurance and that I had to pay for my own health care. And now, you know, I'm much more wise and mature and realize that, you know, you have to pay for your health. You're going to pay now or pay later. So it's important, you know, we are in this society that makes us think that healthcare should be cheap and easy. And if you don't value your health enough to pay for it, then you're not going to have it for long, and you're going to end up in a really tough situation. So I'm very thankful that I had to pay for my own healthcare, and so I sought out natural remedies. I sought out natural practitioners, and I was able to heal myself naturally from a lot of the, you know, issues that I suffered from. And so it was a blessing in the end.
Absolutely. And you made a good point. If you don't pay for it now, you'll pay for it later. And I, with my, you know, very gracious discount, my connection to all this, being a practitioner, working at a company, you know, I probably spend around $100 or so on my own supplements. And a lot of times that's just stuff that I take on the weekends and in the evenings, because my company is amazing and has that for the employees as an insurance for the employees to make sure they're healthy and sick. So, you know, I spend this money on my own supplements, and, you know, I eat healthier food, which I think saves me money. You know, a lot of times packing your lunches versus eating out, you invest in yourself now. And, you know, if you just, I don't know, I was speaking before and I've talked a lot about this, just, I've never really had an illness, never really been, you know, had an upset stomach. And I can't even relate to people who say, oh, I can't come, I have an upset stomach. I just, like, that's never happened to me. And it's just so important to invest in yourself. And especially if you're having those issues now in your 20s, where we were talking about too. So if you're in your 20s and you're having to turn down, you know, events with your friends, a game night, or going out because you don't feel good, you better do something about your health now, because it's only going to get worse. Our food quality isn't great. We're talking about new vaccines. We talk about all these mandates. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about mandates and what that looks like, what people need to know about. And I do have a couple questions for you, but medical freedom, and that's a huge thing. And even with the masks, that's something I'm concerned about, because people are like, oh, it's just a mask, put it on. Well, it's also my medical freedom. It's, I'm probably more educated. I spend more time looking into all of this and seeing both sides of it. I understand why, and I always look at that. I understand why some of the medical recommendations are there. I always research that, but I research alternatives and other things that could be more beneficial than doing just what they say and following the rules. So, medical freedom is something that I am big on. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what that means.
Well, really the bottom line for me is, if we're really have the intention to treat every person with dignity and equality, these are supposedly the values of our society, is to treat people with dignity and to treat everyone equal, then we have to allow them to govern their own bodies. Telling someone that they have to have a shot doesn't show them dignity. We're not giving people the opportunity to make their own decision about, what medications are going into their body, what pharmaceutical products are going into their body. Then we are not treating them with dignity. Enforcing your will onto another person is the beginning of the end of peace. And so mandates they're a violation of a basic human right to govern your own body. And there must always be exemptions available when any product carries a risk, especially when that product is liability free. With the talk about the COVID vaccine, the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, whatever that might end up looking like, if it does ever come to fruition. I mean, people say it's too big to fail at this point, so they have to come up with something. Who's going to pay for the harm that's caused by that vaccine? Vaccines created under the PrEP Act, they don't have any liability. So if, say, my husband is a hospital worker, he supports our family, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm just saying, for instance, he's not a hospital worker, he's self-employed, but should he be in an industry where the company says, well, you have to get vaccinated if you want to keep your job, and he gets vaccinated, and then he's paralyzed from the legs down and can't work for the rest of his life? Who's going to pay for that? That's something that every person in that kind of industry needs to start thinking about and talking to their employer about. So advocacy for maintaining exemptions, it happens on many different levels. It happens at the state level, which is what we have concentrated a lot on over the past 5 years since we started the organization, which looks like, talking to legislators, encouraging the community to talk to their legislators, write to your legislators, educate your legislators, share stories, share your vaccine injury stories if your child was injured by a vaccine. Make these people who are supposed to represent you in the legislature understand the whole picture, because they are getting hammered by pharmaceutical lobbyists with one-sided information. And those lobbyists are not waiting for an opportunity. They're not waiting until a bill is introduced. They're there every single day. And so we need to try to keep pace with that. We're not spending, $1 billion a year on lobbying. A lot of us are juggling a lot of things, and we have to make this a priority. And the best way that I think to do that is to build a community. So we've this year launched a chapter group initiative in the state. So we have about 30 chapter groups now. And the hope is that those chapter groups become a community to support one another as, this medical freedom becomes more threatened, and there's just more tension around, your ability to choose, but also to empower one another to make those visits to legislators and to show the legislators, look, it's not just one, random person who read a book 20 years ago and is some kind of fanatic. No, we're well educated, sometimes more well educated than some of the people working in the medical field. And, we're well educated, we have experiences to share, and our point of view is extremely valuable. So we need to get it out there, and we need to share it with our community, with our loved ones, and with our legislators. But another angle for advocacy and advocating for your own rights is with employers, with corporations, and also within the religious community. I think talking to your pastor or your church leaders is just as important as talking to your legislators, because they, again, are in a position where they're supposed to represent you and defend you against, the onslaught from the world. And so we have resources on our website to help people, and we have these groups to help people learn, how do I talk to these people? What can I say? Is it important? Yes, it's very important. If you don't tell them, then who will? And so we need to be educating on many different levels of leadership, so that when there is a push, either at the state level or the federal level or the corporate level, we have people already in place who have an understanding about why choice is so very important.
Yeah, and that's great information and just a great way to look at it and a great thing to be an advocate for. But one thing I wonder, we get asked this a lot whenever you're trying to work towards something, and a lot of times you're faced with these mandates, faced with exemptions being removed. Like you said, certain states, they're mandated at the state level. States are making new mandates. How do you stay positive through all of this and have the motivation to keep going? Because sometimes it just seems like you get worn out. And or for me personally, I'm not saying you, but how do you stay positive and continue going on with all of this when people are constantly battling the information and your passion? They're telling you you're wrong, or they're just misinformed. How do you stay positive and keep going and have the drive to educate more on this?
Well, for me, it's really important that I put in place things to take care of myself and to recognize when I'm getting, when I start to veer towards negativity. And so it can be extremely frustrating, and it feels thankless. And sometimes it just feels like we're, spinning our wheels hard and not getting anywhere. But I never believe that. And so to me, the way that I stay positive is, well, I live in today. So a lot of the anxiety and frustration is built on a foundation of what ifs. And if we start going down the what if trail, yeah, we might be living in a fantasy land of the future that is oppressive. When right now, our reality is we still have freedom. And so I just try to stay focused on what we do have. Also, celebrating every win. I mean, our organization has helped to stop many bad bills and reverse some actions that would have promoted more vaccinations. So we have had many successes here in Pennsylvania, and we celebrate them. We also celebrate every time we get a new parent into the group, or someone emails us and says, thank you so much for your information. I was able to say no to the vaccinations at my doctor's office today. Or I was able to, stop and slow down the schedule because, my child was injured. So every time we see that, that's a huge win. Every life is so extremely valuable. So even if you educate 100 people and only one of them, has that kind of click moment, you don't know what that could lead to. You don't know if that could start a legacy of healthier people. You don't know if you save that person's future child or grandchild. So you just got to try, and you've got to just leave the results up to God, really is what it is. I mean, that's another thing. I can't focus on results. I cannot create results. I can only take actions. So I do what I can, and then I put it in God's hands. And the other thing is, I have a chronic pain syndrome. And so that's kind of a self-governing, device that my body has that prevents me from getting too far into a stress situation, because it is triggered by stress. And so once I start to feel the pain, I'm like, oh, I got to back off. I got to do some self-care. And, I have to take care of myself. And that sometimes looks like getting off of social media. I do not recommend ingesting tons and tons of information just for the sake of knowing things. I think it's important to know enough to make your own decision and to be able to speak to other people. But continually taking in information can become a huge stressor. And so it's not necessary to know everything that's going on all the time if that's going to make you live in a fearful state. Shut it off, take a break. And that's why at the PCIC, we have teams for everything we do. We have a steering committee. So we have 4 people in leadership, so that when one of us does start to approach a stress state, we can pull back and trust that, okay, we have a team working on social media. I can step away from social media if that's what's causing me stress. Or we have a team who's, helping the chapter leaders navigate, legislation. So if I need to step away and take care of my family, then I can do that, because the number one reason that grassroots efforts and nonprofits fail is volunteer burnout. And so I take it really seriously, and we really try to take care of each other. We never have one person taking a whole load. We have to split it up, because we know these are volunteers, and a lot of us are moms, some moms with children who have vaccine injuries and need therapies and are, very, have to be very hands-on a lot of the time. And so we, many hands makes light work. So it's important to share the load, to be part of a team, and to recognize when you're starting to get towards burnout. And also, living in today, I've learned the Serenity Prayer a long time ago, and it's so relevant in every situation, because it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And one thing that's not in my control is outcomes. So I just, I take it, I do the best that I can, and then I have to let go of the results.
Well, that's a great way to stay positive, a lot of useful tips. And that's something that I can relate to. I work in this field, and a lot of times I'm the one managing information, hosting these shows. And I'll have some family members or friends or colleagues say, you need to send this information to this person. They're not getting it. And you can't beat a dead horse. Sometimes people just aren't going to agree with you, and that's okay. All you can do is plant a seed. You can educate them as best as you can. And if they choose otherwise, then that's okay. It's not worth me stressing over, their personal decisions. But the best thing that we can do is, educate 100 people. And if one person walks away, lighting their torch from yours and carrying on this information to share with others that you may have never reached, that's the greatest thing. So, like I mentioned, I went to this showing of the movie Vaxxed, which was amazing. They had a panel at the end, all sorts of things to sign up for. So I put my email in to get this information. And like you said, you don't bombard us with information. And I said, I think it's once a week, or you can even opt out for once a month. But it's really great information, and it's not something that, stresses me out every day when I see it in my inbox. It's, oh, cool, what are they doing now? So I wanted to write the link on the Facebook page. So what exactly is the link, or where do you go to for that for people interested?
informedconsentpa.org.
Informedconsentpa.org. Okay, so I'll leave this here.
Yeah,
So
I had a mom.
go ahead.
I had a mom just this week call me. We have a phone number. And she called me and said, I got some information from your organization, and I didn't even know that I was allowed to say no to vaccines. So this is not about turning everyone against vaccines. This is about putting healthcare back in the hands of the mothers and the parents and the people. You know, we all need to, as I said before, be given the dignity to make our own decisions. And really, to me, informed consent is mostly a parent's rights issue, but a human rights issue. You know, and as a Christian, I'm called to fight injustice, to stand up for those who are not able to stand up for themselves, and to speak the truth. And so for me, that's really what drives me, is just wanting everyone to have the opportunity to make an informed decision. And whether, you know, once you read all the information, or you get balanced and truthful and complete information, and you decide to vaccinate, I have no problem with that. I want you to feel good about your decision, so that you're not going to live with a regret, so that you're not going to go into that doctor's office and feel bullied and feel overwhelmed and inadequate. You know, we have these people in the medical industry have become like godlike, like idols, who this whole complex has kind of taken the power away from the parents to make the decisions, and become this expert driven, super scientific, like, you can't understand this, so you shouldn't make a decision, just leave it up to us. And really, no one is an expert on your child more than you are.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, some questions I'm seeing are, how do people know about exemption forms? Do you have like a library of references and resources for people to learn more? What is like your library of information? You said you have a phone number. So if people go to your website, what are they going to find?
On our website, we have a resources tab. Okay. And so it's pretty extensive. There's a link for documentaries. There's a link for, I think, helpful links, articles, and there's also a printable resources page. So the printable resources has all kinds of fact sheets you can print out and give to your friends or your legislators or your husband or whoever you want to share information with. We have information there about we actually have a really comprehensive document on mask research right now. That's like at the top of the list. There's a couple of COVID things. So you can go there. If you're in Pennsylvania, we have information on our website about exemptions. But if you're in another state, I highly recommend you seek out NVIC, the National Vaccine Information Center, and they have representatives in every state, and they have on their website all the laws for every different state. So if you're in a different state, then they can help you to know what your rights are and also to connect with people.
That's good information. So if you're in a different state, the NVIC, I posted the link here, would be good information for you. The informed consent in PA, you have a bunch of resources and different tabs on the website to be able to get some information. And from what I know from my history is, and where I see a lot of the chaos and the panic and the scram is to just, senior year, I got a letter saying you need the meningitis shot or you can't go to prom, as if, the same 400 kids I've been going to school with, 100 of those that were going to prom you know, it was going to be a different story, you know, 4 hours of a dance. So I took this paper home senior year of high school, and I'm like, Mom, if I can't go to the dance, I'm going to be really upset. So she said, you know, don't worry. She was very informed. All I have to do is send in this paper. So I took the paper in, bought my tickets, and that was that. It was as simple as that. But, you know, me not knowing any better, and of course worried about the dance, I panicked. So I'm like, you need to take me to the doctor, and I'm freaking out. So of course I knew my mom would take care of it. But you know, I hear a lot of these conversations between young parents, and it's, well, you have to get the flu shot if you take your kids to daycare. And you know, as gentle as I can be, I let them know it's not actually a state mandate. It's your choice. You have to educate yourself on it. What do you do in situations like that where you're trying to be gracious, but you're trying to educate others? You don't want to offend anyone. You just want to educate, because that's a problem that I run into a lot.
Well, one of my favorite tools for education is literature. You know, so I carry around, we have business cards, and we don't sell them, but if you want some, you can just email us. And we don't sell anything. We're just a donation-based, you know, grassroots group. But our business cards have on the front our mission statement, and on the back it has just 3 or 4 basic facts. You know, talks about the 1986 Act, that, you know, vaccines there's no liability, that they're not tested against placebo, they're not tested for carcinogenicity, and that you do have exemptions in Pennsylvania. So those are the basic facts that we have on there. And that's it. You know, sometimes it's just all you can simply say, well, you know, you do have a choice. And if you want to find some more information, here's somewhere you can go. I've done that, you know, with people, especially when people are pregnant. I just can't, you know, as somebody who is informed, I feel like it's my duty to share what I know. I mean, if I only keep it to myself, then what good is it? So just having some cards is really helpful, or, you know, maybe a printout from our website that, you know, to say, well, just look into this in case you're curious, or if you have any questions, or, you know, if you want to do some research before you know, make that appointment, here's a website where you can look. And like I said, the results aren't up to you. So
yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, I can relate. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, when I was I guess back again when I was 18, 19, starting to, you know, heading to college, and I had to get the hepatitis C vaccine series. I was so angry. I didn't want to get any shots. I really think I was vaccine injured at my 7th grade shots. After that, I developed eczema. And so I was just, you know, I just really didn't want to do it, because I wasn't even going to live at college. You know, I'm not in the dorm. I'm just going to classes with people. And I didn't know that there was any way around it. So I think I don't remember if I got the whole series, or if I just went in, got one shot so I could get the paper signed, and then didn't go back. I don't remember, but I just remember feeling really indignant
Pressured.
that I had to do this. It didn't seem fair, you know? It didn't make sense to me then, doesn't make sense to me now.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And what drives me crazy sometimes is I have a lot of friends that will ask me questions, and I don't have children yet, but I have nieces and nephews. I've helped my sister. My mom's always sending me information. So I'm really blessed to be informed, but I've never actually walked in those shoes of being a parent. But I have friends reach out to me and say, you know, what kind of mattress should I buy? You know, my child's going to be sleeping on this every night. And what kind of laundry detergent? Asking all these crazy questions that I've never even thought about, because I haven't been in that position. Asking all these questions, doing all this research, and then I might ask them about vaccines, and they're like, well, yeah, I'm getting them vaccinated. Well, you're worried about the chemicals used to make a mattress that they might sleep on every night, and maybe breathe it in. But what about what you're injecting into their bodies? Have you done any research on that? So sometimes they're totally thrown. They're like, what? Why would I, have to think about that? So that's another way. And what I find a lot of times, like you said, sometimes you need to get off of social media. I don't like confrontation. I like to educate people, but if you're going to argue with me, I step back. I don't care to argue. I care to inform you, but sometimes I'll just send a direct message if I see people asking questions about, hey, does anyone have any input on vaccines, any experience? And, you see someone right away do it and, advocating for it. I know that person's going to come after me if I leave some information. So I'll send a direct message that's meant for that person who might actually be interested, rather than someone's that's just going to deflect it or defend it. So there's different ways to go around it, but I think you gave some very useful tools for us to learn from.
Thanks. Yeah, well, you know what you said about parents researching all these other things, it's a result of this expert culture that we have. We just consider the doctors are the experts, so I don't have to learn anything about what they know. But there is no mattress expert that I know. There is no, children's toy expert. So in those cases, we take it upon ourselves to do the research. But because we've been indoctrinated to believe that, the white coat means you've got all the answers, we don't start to do our own research. And that's what we try to, we try to spark that, just spark the questions, that there's more to it than you might realize. And about social media. So if you want to stay informed and read good commentary and articles, we have a blog too on our website. And I just created that recently to help people who need to spend less time on social media, but don't want to miss out on, the current information. So we don't do informative emails, because we think that there are so many other groups who are well-resourced and well-staffed who do a great job at that, like NVIC, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Children's Health Defense. They will keep you informed, and our emails are really more action-oriented. So, but we do have the blog, and it's a great place that you can go. So if you still want to kind of keep your pulse on things, but you want to back off of social media, that's one way that you can do that. Let me tell you though, social media, I don't know if people realize this, but it is not neutral. The algorithm for social media favors things that cause fear and anger, because fear and anger drive engagement. So your time is the commodity on social media, and fear-based information, things that make you angry and things that make you scared, keep you engaged longer. They keep you clicking through, they keep you reading comments, checking back. And that's what the algorithms on social media, especially Facebook, are geared towards. So if you find that that Facebook is becoming a really negative experience for you, well, it's not an accident. It's on purpose. And so you have to make a conscious effort to pull away from that if it's affecting you.
Yeah, that's these are really great tips, great advice, and that blog is surely awesome. I've been trying to spend less time on social media, less time on my phone in general, trying to keep my screen time down. As I'm streaming this though, my screen time is way up, so I'm not counting this week because I'm on it for about 5 hours a day, just watching videos here, monitoring everything. But I recently watched a documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, and that talked a lot about algorithms and how all of these people who created these systems, from Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, all that, they left the companies because it's unethical. What they're doing to, mentally stimulate you so you can't put it down. And you look at young children who watch cartoons and all of that. Sometimes you put them on YouTube and it's like they're in a trance, and it's crazy. Something's going on with that. I can't even explain it. They're making these things so you can't put it down. And they said they would work at these companies all day, set it up, and they would go home and be on social media all night long. So that was a great thing to wake up to. So that's something I'm really trying to put down. But, use good resources, useful resources like your website, the blogs, something where there's not going to be, if you're really trying to learn, focus on one thing and learn from that, and don't get involved in all the social media, the comments, because that can be from people really uneducated and people who really have no business being on a platform like that where we're just trying to educate others. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, I know some people stay on social media because they're like, well, I need to be there to educate people. And if that's what you feel called to do, then good. I'm glad there are people like that who are, on that platform doing that work. And, once I posted, so every year I go on my town page and I post, no shots, no school, not true. You have vaccine exemptions in Pennsylvania. And the first time I did it, I posted it, I left it there, and then I was gone. I didn't need to engage in any debate about it. Like, I'm just telling you, you have rights.
Yeah.
And then, there was all this conversation, and they called me the uni poster because I didn't engage in the comments. I just said, I just spoke the truth, and what you want to do with it is up to you. But I will say, I then had someone private message me and say, can you tell me where I can get an exemption form, or how do I use this? So, you might have 15 loudmouths shouting, misinformation at you because they don't like that you're going against the grain. But, if you just help one other mom to realize that she can still be in charge of her own child, then I think it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the end of our time here. This is really great information that we got from you today. So we appreciate you participating in our virtual summit. Is there a way people can get in contact with you directly, or do they just go to the PCIC and find information and resources and contacts that way?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do is, like I said, team oriented.
Okay.
So, so you can send an email to us at it's informedconsent2015@gmail. And our volunteer who manages the inbox will get it to the right person, depending on, what it is that you are contacting us about. And then also just sign up for the emails so that you're getting alerts when something is going on here in Pennsylvania. And, we have our Facebook page is, the admins for the Facebook page are phenomenal. They, especially the one woman who's the main admin there, is incredibly knowledgeable. She is just, she's fantastic. And so if you're looking for a good resource to stay informed, follow our Facebook page. It's just Informed Consent PA, I think, at Facebook. And we don't know what's going to happen now that the algorithms are shifting. We don't know if you'll have to kind of seek it out, if it won't show up in your news feed, but try to follow it, because she's posting something every day that is thought-provoking and informative. So I really recommend that. I do try to, collect a lot of that and put it on the blog, but it's not, it doesn't happen as quickly. So
yeah, well,
yeah, if you're on Facebook, that's a good place to be, and it's a good way to share articles with other people.
Yeah, so I posted all of the links, the email address that you gave out, and I think people are really looking forward to having this as a resource. So we appreciate your time today.
But yeah, one last thing I forgot to mention is on our website we also have a Get Involved tab. And I think the first selection there is chapter groups, join a group. And I can't stress enough how awesome it is to be part of a chapter group. They meet just about monthly, sometimes more. I mean, some of my best friends that are my community now, I met through PCIC, and I met them because they're in my district, and we did some advocacy together, and now our kids are best buddies, and we go to the park. Yeah. And It's great. So being
That's
part of a
great. Community
chapter,
is great. So I think people will use these resources and links to get involved as well. But this video is recorded here so people can go back if they missed any of the information and check it out. But we appreciate your time today, Charmaine. Thank you so much.
thank you.
We'll see you.